I didn't think I ate 9 cans, but maybe.
I mean, nobody wants to admit they eat 9 cans of ravioli, but I did. I'm ashamed of myself. But the first can doesn't count, and then you get to the second, and then the third, and fourth and fifth. I think I burned with the blowtorch, and then I just kept eating.
I'm sorry.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of Muskies on Tap, bringing to you episode number 143. I'm one of your three hosts on here tonight, Gus Manthei. We got the other Mott members, Mott crew on here. Let's introduce them before we go any further and talk about our guests and what we're going to be chatting about tonight. But we got none other than my brother Max. He was out there in Minnesota at the Minnesota Musky Expo. We'll chat about that. But Max, how you doing? How was your weekend?
It was a great weekend. Got to spend a couple days at the Minnesota Muskie Expo. Friday night, walked around a bit, picked up a couple baits that I had my eye on, and then Saturday had a tremendous time hanging out at the Huntsy Tail booth with Jamie and Kyle. So appreciated those guys for letting me tag along on Saturday. Got to go to the bait swap after, and even found myself having a little time at the old Mystic Casino.
Wow.
Saturday night. So shout out Mystic, shout out Bait Swap, shout out Minnesota Muskie Expo. Great weekend though overall.
Possible sponsor of the
Fortunately,
pond?
moving a little slow for my Sunday playoff men's league game. I did fall in the semifinals, so that was unfortunate. But
Shoot.
we were back at it at work on Monday, ready to have another good week. So yeah,
That's a real blessing.
it is a real blessing.
All that you
Brian,
did over the weekend, just right back to work.
Brian, how was your weekend?
Good. Not quite as eventful as yours. You gave Gus and I a little bit of FOMO, sending us reports from the expo. Really did make me wish that we all made the trip over there. I
hmm
also was not informed that it was at Mystic Lake Casino, my old stomping grounds, my old playpen.
Not at
Uh,
Mystic Lake, but
you
yeah.
said, is that Canterbury?
Yeah.
Canterbury, yeah. Which I haven't been there, so I could have had beginner's luck, which would have been fun. But maybe next year we'll keep that on the calendar lightly for next year. I spent a little bit of my weekend in the golf simulator again, and just trying to get the game dialed for hopefully an early golf season this year at some point by the end of this month, if the weather keeps getting a little bit warmer. So
You would have had a hard time at the Huntsy Tail booth this weekend if you were helping out because you could actually look into the casino floor at
yeah.
Canterbury from the booth.
Yeah, I'm not
So
good with those bright flashing lights. I'm
mhm.
something about them. It's like magnetic force field
Yeah,
that's just dragging me in.
moth to a flame.
Exactly.
You guys crack me up.
Gus, how's your time down in Madison?
Two peas in a pod. That was good. I was working the hooked and tag booth again, with Tom and Clay, and we had a good time. Saw our oncoming guest here, actually, Rob Manthei. He was down there. He spoke there. He had a booth for his guide service and lodge and everything. So it was good to see him and catch up with him and, get this locked in to chat it up on the podcast. But it was good. It was one of those fishing expos, not a musky expo. So I behaved myself. I did not make any cool bait purchases, which is probably for the better. I'm just ramping up and saving it for the Wisconsin Muskie Expo coming up
Mm-mm-mm.
in Wausau. As we've discussed, it is break the bank season, break the bank bait season. It's not, no new bait season. It is full steam ahead. Get baits, buy them. I think it's one of
Drain
those
the account.
seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, of course, looking forward to that. But we'll catch you guys or everybody listening here on the backside of this. But let's just let the interview roll. So before we get into there, of course, touch on the sponsors of the pod to make this possible. We got Thorne Brothers, of course. They were at Minnesota. They were at Wisconsin Fishing Expo in Madison. They were split up, so I got to see some of the fellas there. Max, you got to see some of the other fellas there, so that was a
Can
good
I can
time.
I give you a nice little transition into our next sponsor, Gus?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Doug Wagner himself was actually helping me get dialed in with a couple new Thorn Bros rods for the upcoming season. So
Whoa.
Yeah. So
Mm,
following the advice of El Capitan, and we'll
Dougie Fresh.
we'll get those lined up. But yeah, anyways, continue. Sorry.
For sure. Yeah. So of course what Doug's got going on, we got next gen muskie. So if you like what Doug's doing and want to be a part of that, head to nextgenmuskies.com and use the promo code MOT10 MOT10 to sign up and get 10% off. Boom. All right.
Yeah.
Boom.
Let's
Support the
get you
pod. That helps us. It's fun and
support the pod.
fun in Canada trips.
Gas money.
Gas
Keeps the
money.
Illumicraft rolling.
Some sleep in a
Spot
can
to
money.
spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Monster Energy money.
Yeah, you help Brian buy all his pink, purple, and orange baits too.
Mm-hmm.
Saying,
Maybe someday. Yeah, maybe someday.
It's in for sure, for sure. All right, let's let the interview roll, and we will catch you on the flip. All right, here on the line we got Rob Manthei out of St. Germain, Wisconsin, owner of Fibbers Restaurant, and I think Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, is it just St. Germain Lodge right
Correct.
there?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you on. I just spent some time at the Wisconsin Fishing Expo in Madison. Saw you down there. It's good to see you. But we got you here on the pod for the first time, so we'll get right into it. So, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Good. That was a long weekend. Got a good night's sleep and got to turn and burn and head to Canada tomorrow. So,
Oh, nice.
Sweet. What are you doing in Canada in the winter?
we're filming the last ice show for Gillespie's show,
Awesome.
up there. Yeah.
So, well, does he release those like, the short delay, or is it like next year it'll come out?
No, no, no. This will be, I'm not sure what Ryan's calendar is. I know they have a couple ice shows that they have to air yet. So I would imagine this will probably be the very last one of the month, I'm guessing. Something like
Awesome.
that. So
he's been doing, isn't it like pretty much a weekly show for how many years now?
30
And hasn't
years?
missed a.
yeah, I think it's over 30 because my first show I did with him was October 1998. So that's
Jeez.
28 years. And I think, yeah, it's got to be 30 because I think he had done it for 2 years prior to the first time I fished with him.
How'd you guys get linked up? So like when you started filming with him, was he a pretty big name in the TV industry at that point?
Um, I mean, I knew about him. How I got hooked up with him was like, see, way back then, how it worked, John didn't have a personal relationship with a bunch of individual guides and so on. So he would just contact Chamber of Commerce's and they'd say, here, go with this guy, go with that guy, do whatever, or focus on um, whatever time of the year it was, what might have been, if it was spring, let's focus on walleyes and crappies or something like that. Well, I've known Pete Mena since I was 14. And at that time, and I was guiding for 3 years at that time. And he just said, hey, he said, if you're looking for someone, I was living in Minocqua at the time, and he said, if you're looking for somebody to shoot a show with in that area, maybe contact Rob and so on. So he called me up, and it was end of September, and he's like, well, we want to come up next week. Do you have time? And I said, well, I had one day open. He's like, well, we film Monday and Tuesday. That'll work out Tuesday. Cause actually Monday I was going to it was the Packer Viking game. Maybe you remember that game. Randy Moss completely tore up the Packers really bad. But
Was that the Joe Buck mooning? Was that when he mooned?
Yep.
And Joe Buck,
You
disgraceful
remember.
act game,
Yeah.
or disgusting act, or whatever.
But yeah, that was, Monday night game. So like I got home at, 2:30 in the morning and was ready to go fishing the next day. And he's like, well, he goes, I don't want to put a whole lot of pressure on you. He's like, we have a half a show, but we just need to catch 2 muskies today. And I said, well, okay, so much for not putting any pressure on,
No pressure.
never
Two of
filmed
them.
a show with this guy or know what it's like, but we pulled it off. We got 2 fish. So, and then, we just kind of made a relationship after that and kept going. So that's how that started in a nutshell.
I mean, that had to be a little, I don't know, you'd have to have like a little bit of jitters as a younger guy. You're filming for this like TV show. You probably are on 3 hours of sleep, and then the guy shows up and says you gotta pop 2 muskies that day to make their show work. I mean, I don't know. I'd definitely be feeling the heat a little bit, I think.
Yeah, no, it was pretty nerve-wracking, like you said. I mean, the the morning started off with we had, it was, I can't remember what day it was. It was like first week of October. I mean, it was just at the point where lakes were finishing turning over. Live bait bite was going on, and we had gotten a sucker bite right away in the morning, I remember. And John, everything got, because back then the cameraman that he had fished along with us. So if there was a bite or somebody got a follow or something, like he'd just set his rod down real quick and pick up the camera. I mean, his name was Tim Bush. He was really good at multitasking that way. And of course, back then, when you're going back almost 30 years ago, camera equipment wasn't where it's at today. So it was kind of a bulkier camera, and he'd just keep it at his feet. And I'm like, we got a bite on the sucker, and Tim picked up the camera, and we never discussed like the protocol of what we were going to do. So I just, everything was right. I set the hook and, started catching the fish, and John's like, no, you can't do that yet. I'm like, well, it's already hooked. I'm fighting the fish. And, so ultimately everything went wrong on that first fish. And it never got used. And it's like, oh man, here's our first bite. And, it's like, John doesn't, do a reenactment of stuff like that. So it got, like, well, if we need it, we'll figure it out, and anyway, I'm like, well, okay, maybe we should, it kind of happened too quick. Like we were literally fishing maybe like 10 minutes, must have stopped right on a fish. And so then we went through the whole scenario of what we do or what we're supposed to do and how he wants it with the progression of the show. And, of course, we never got another bite until about an hour before dark. We had some fish follow and stuff like that. And, then right before dark, it was just the perfect storm. Tim caught one casting, and then we got one on a sucker, and the day ended well. So that, we almost, we technically caught 3, but we filmed 2,
Right.
What was it like in the early parts of that show, being, on the other side of the camera, seeing John do his thing? I mean, he's full of energy. We've been watching him growing up, super enthusiastic guy. And then, like you said, technology wasn't the way, but what was he like kind of behind the camera, in between catches?
Really no different than he is now. I mean, if I hear it once on a weekend, like this past show, you hear it 100 times. They're like, you ever want to throw John overboard when you're fishing? I'm like, absolutely not. And they're like, oh, he's too loud. I'm like, it's all for the camera. Like if you literally was standing here next to him talking, he's just a normal laid back guy, and he just gets excited. Yes, maybe if it's a bass, a walleye, or crappie, maybe it's a little, upped for the TV audience. But the guy's caught fish up to 56 inches, and if he catches a 35 incher tomorrow, and you put your hand on his shoulder and say good job, he's shaking like he would have been 50 years ago catching his first
Cool.
fish, so yeah, the muskies really do get them jacked up. But other than that, no. It's like I said, there's a lot of hype for being excited, and like John always says, he portrays the goofball on TV that doesn't know how to fish, but he's actually a really good fisherman. He can do whatever he needs to do on his own. It's just the format of the show of how he works with, the person that they're centering the show around, whether it's me or Josh or, Brett Jolly or anybody that he's filming with, it's the, show me how to catch these fish in this situation. So.
And yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of these guys that have had long careers in TV, excuse me, do a good job at like still getting excited about catching fish. I mean, if you're sitting at home watching on a Saturday morning and you see a guy catch a 43-inch muskie and he's just holding a deadpan, and like, oh, here's the fish, and then throws it back, like you're not going to probably last very long. People sitting at home aren't going to be able to relate to that, and probably not going to continue to tune in. So I get it. But I mean, was that first shoot you did, was that your first time ever like being behind the camera fishing for muskies, or had you done any sort of like filming for the Commerce or anyone else before that? Because I
Prior
feel
to
like it
that,
changes things a little bit.
yeah, prior to that, oh gosh, I forget his name. He's a guy down in Southern Illinois. He made a couple, it's funny to even say VHS videos, back, a year or two prior to that. I can't think of his name. Anyway, but that was more of a, that was more of a laid back scenario because like he was up for like a whole week, and he fished with me and two or three other people in the area. I think Doug Smith, myself, a name from the past, Paul Klein, if you remember that name. But it was like, we each had like 2 full days with them, and it was, it was a whole different scenario. It was like all he cared about is if he got like, it's like I just want to let's, do a little background, let's do some technique, and we just need to get like one fish. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like you're trying to put together a TV show, because he was just making a video. And when he was up here, he was here for like a whole week, and then he might have spent some time with some Pewaukee area guys and stuff like that. I'll think of his name probably an hour after we're done doing this. But
It's all good.
yeah, but that was the only other experience before that.
Okay.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So prior to this, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. This is still very early into your guiding. How did that kind of start for guiding up here?
Well, to be quite honest, it was really never the plan. I mean, I grew up fishing here since I was 2. I mean, I grew up in Shawano, but we always came up here on vacation, and I kind of wanted to, live up here, but it's like, okay, I know what I'm going to school for. That's not going to happen because, face it, we're not a big city around here. And I've got a math major, business minor from Whitewater, and I had been the quick version of it was, back in the day, Raleigh Bessett, the original owner of Raleigh and Helen's Muskie Shop, he was actually from Shawano, where I grew up. And his first shop, was in Rhinelander. I'm sure you guys know that, before it moved to Minocqua. But, so I was coming up to Minocqua to fish one weekend, and got talking with Raleigh. And I said, yeah, I want to live up here. I'm hoping to want to live in Minocqua so I can get a job at an insurance company in Wausau and drive back and forth, because that's really not that far. And he's like, oh, he goes, you still like doing a lot of fishing? And I said, oh yeah, as much as I can. And he's like, well, and this was in the early 90s, like right when they had stopped back trolling. And Raleigh's like, he goes, my guiding days are numbered. He's like, my arthritis is so bad, and now I can't take people trolling. And he's like, you should take some of my people fishing. I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that. I want to just fish on my own. And he's basically the one that got me started. And I was doing a little guiding out of the shop there for him. But then once, fast forward 2-3 years from that, and then that's when I met John, and then things just got crazy from there on forward. So that's basically it wasn't planned. It kind of happened that way.
What what were you guiding out of right away? What was your setup?
My so once once I started actually guide, like my first boat was an Alumacraft um, V175 Phantom, I think. It was like their bass platform, aluminum, dual console type boat. I got rid of that and I bought a Ranger 690, which was kind of funny because I was talking to one of the guys down at the show who used to be with Ranger when I was with Ranger, Jason Parsons, who's now with Vexus. And I said, looking at this boat sitting here, I mean, you saw the. On some of those boats there. So
Ridiculous.
1997, I bought a 690 Ranger with a 175 EFI Mercury motor, and that boat setup was $33,000. And that was with no guide discounts or any breaks. You know what I'm saying? So,
Wow.
look at that today. I mean, that's barely covering the retail of the engine on the boat. So
Right.
it's yeah, it's quite crazy how things have changed. But that was, and then after that, I was with Ranger until 2006, and obviously we know now boats of that caliber are carrying six numbers in their price instead of five, low fives. Now they're low 120 to 160,000. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's
it's
insane.
nuts. So you're living in Minocqua, you're running guide trips, you've kind of just fallen into this thing. When did Fibbers come into play then?
Well, I mean, so I don't know if you guys remember any of that, but before Fibbers was there was a resort called Ozier's, and it was there for a bunch of years. And the people that had purchased it tore it down, and they built what's there now in 1996, 1997. And they um, when that building got finished, well, actually, when I had moved up here, my sole plan actually was because that was like the first building boom, and I had done flooring work the summers of my college, so I'd learned the trade, and I was like, I want to take advantage of this building boom. Well, I ended up actually doing the flooring work in that building when it was first built. Little did I know that 20 some years later, I'd be owning it and now be probably dying in it. But anyway, um, I met my wife Kay there, and so yeah, I mean, she cooked for the prior owners, and when I started getting pretty busy in the early 2000s, and you got people coming up north, and they're, well, where should we stay? Well, stay here, stay there. Where should we go out to eat? Where are your favorite places? Yada, whatever. And it's like, well, you know what? There's got to be a way. We should try to channel all this money ourselves. Because they're willing to stay someplace, they're willing to go out to eat. So instead of passing customers off to other resorts, it's like we might as well, if they're going to spend the money, we might as well try to collect it all from them, right? So that was that was a big leap in 2006 that we got that place.
So it sounds like was it kind of a business itch that you were trying to scratch? Like you said, you kind of fell into the guiding thing. You went to school for business. Were you trying to pursue like a resort that was for sale, or did it more so kind of fall into the lap, like right timing sort of deal?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that was kind of how it went. I mean, it really wasn't, it was kind of a plan, but maybe not to that degree. And like you said, everything kind of happens for a reason, and that's where it's at.
Seems like a lot of these things were kind of like a right place, right time
Yeah.
situation, you know,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. I mean, what like when you guys took that over, so that was, I mean, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, was that like, did that, because you always hear about guys, there are people that own resorts or buy resorts and then they stop fishing. Obviously, you guys were kind of trying to be a one-stop shop, but for those first couple years, did it detract from any of your ability to go out and fish, or was it just like, hey, we bought the resort, but I still got to take people out and catch fish?
Yeah, no, I mean, actually back then it was a lot easier than it is now because we actually had a lot more employees because people wanted to work back then, you know. Um, now, 20 years later, I'm still juggling the same schedule, but doing a lot more. I mean, it seems typically the longer you own a business, you should be working less towards the end of it, right? But that's not the case, not in this day and age. So
Yeah,
I know we were
constant
chatting about
seasonal
that this
turnover.
weekend.
yeah, but I
Most
mean,
programs.
about the only thing that it's really in the last 7, 8 years, because I'm at the restaurant every night. We're not in the height of summer. We're not open on Wednesdays, but I'm there every night doing something. So it's really cut into the ability to do any fishing after dark, which is kind of a bummer because I used to do a lot of that. So Wednesdays are about the only time I ever get a chance to do that.
Yeah, so let's get into I mean, the fishing side of things. So, you've spent a long time up in the North Woods of Wisconsin and, getting obviously really good at fishing all the lakes that are up there. And I'm sure you've lived through all the changes and all the cycles on all these different lakes. And have always really been interested talking to people like yourself who've fished in northern Wisconsin for a long time to kind of get a feel for what things were like, like when you started guiding and kind of how they are now. What was the kind of fishing industry like back in northern Wisconsin in like the mid to late 90s when you got going? I mean, was it booming up there, or was it? I'm just kind of curious to hear about that.
Well, it definitely is a lot different back then than it was now. I mean, um, back at that point, I mean, realistically, there was, I mean, maybe myself, Doug Smith, um, well, Ken Jackson's like my age also, but there wasn't many young people, thinking about guiding. I mean, it was us middle 20, upper 20 year olds, and then at that time in the mid 90s, and then everybody was 50 to 80, you know what I mean? And so it was not there wasn't a whole lot of really young people into it, and obviously not as many guides. But at that time, there was still in the musky world, it wasn't uncommon, for certain guides were still keeping trophy fish. So there was harvest going on of big fish, that were being caught and put on display, which, we don't even hear or see any of that now, especially, well, even up to 10 years ago. You hear a lot of people talk about how, oh, there was a lot more bigger fish back then and so on. I honestly don't believe that because if you're looking at in the last 5 to 7 years, I mean, the number of true 50-inch fish, which is, the magical number, definitely are more and more. I mean, that's got a lot to do with catch and release, obviously, but also technology and a lot better fishermen than there was back then. There wasn't many people doing things like, I mean, nobody talked about fishing really sandgrass. Like it seems like in the early 2000s was when people were like, oh my God, you ever fish grass on this lake or whatever. It's like, no, have been, yeah. I mean, people fished it, but nobody really understood what it was, you know. I think the education of you know, people are just fishing smarter in this day and age as they were back then, you know.
Mm.
I mean, I think fishing right now is at least, I mean, like I said, I disagree with the fact. I mean, I think there's more big fish around now than there was 25 years ago, because they're definitely getting caught every year. You know, we all see it. You know, you all hear about it. You see the photos. You know, pictures don't lie. But it wasn't. You know, back then. I mean, yeah, maybe in the late '80s and early '90s when there was you know, some guys that were, you know, really good at trolling, and were catching multiple big fish. But you know, a lot of those fish, they got caught and killed, so they didn't get passed on. You know, their genetics didn't get passed on. Now all those fish are getting released. So um, that's at least that's what I see from my personal views.
Yeah, I'm always, yeah, I sometimes wonder if there's a little bit of revisionist history when we talk to guys, you know, like I even catch, you know, sometimes myself doing it, like when you're telling a fish story from 10 years ago, you know, the fish get a little bigger, they get a little heavier, fight gets a little longer, you know,
They
it's just kind
actually
of,
they eat the bait. They don't
yeah,
follow
they
it.
actually get in the boat.
Yeah.
No, so like I definitely could see that. And I mean, yeah, back then, you know, with the limited amount of technology, I can't remember who we had on the podcast. Maybe you guys remember, but I think somebody even said they knew somebody or they themselves were like doing dives on some of the clear lakes to go see what was down there and like actually look at rock bars and stuff and try to understand like what's
Hmm.
happening on some
Who
of
was
these
that?
areas. Can't remember who it was, but I mean, yeah, it's just a whole different ball game now. Obviously, you can figure out what's going on any given 2 to 400 acre lake in Vilas County in about 4 to 5 hours, it feels like.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, when GPS came around, I mean, there were no maps. I mean, you just had a flat gray screen that you put an icon on, you know, to save a spot. You know, there was no contours. There was none of these mapping companies going out and you know, doing all the every 10, 15 yard scan, you know, putting together, you know, a beautiful contoured map. Yeah, you didn't have any of that. I mean, actually, you know, some of the graphs still ran paper. You know, I mean,
Jeez.
it was a lot different, you know, and so yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff change for sure.
Do you
Yeah.
remember like one lake, you don't have to obviously say the name of it, but like one or two lakes that when you guys made the transition into, you know, better tech, whether it was like mapping or even better 2D or side imaging or whatever it was, where you went on like new lakes and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, like this lake is way different than I thought it was, and you spent more time out there because you started to figure it out, you know, like there's a lot more to offer out here.
Well, yeah, I mean, one body of water in particular that was really never mapped out well, um, and you know, it blew my mind when not Navionics, Lake Master had done a map on it, and you know, I used Navionics charts, and I remember I was with Gillespie, and at that point is when he had changed boat companies, so we couldn't fish out of the same boat. I had to fish out of his boat, and he had just gotten Humminbird as a sponsor, and you know, I'm like, man, I said, this is going to be a little tough out here because like I've got all this stuff mapped out, you know, what I thought was a good way of looking at all these bars and irregular contours. And he pops in this Lake Master chip, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, for 30 years, I learned all this stuff the hard way. And this
Yeah.
is like, and it's just like, boy, you know, I felt good about myself because looking at some landmarks and going by stuff like that. But then when you would see it, look down and look at the screen, and it's like, man, this isn't fair. You know, this Lake Master company is unbelievable with the photography that they did, you know. Um, and it was kind of like, well, this isn't going to be a secret for much longer. I think Gus knows where I'm talking, but we'll just leave it at that.
I
Possibly.
think I think you kind of answered my next question. I was asking, like, when you look back, what was kind of the most game-changing technology that came out, whether it was, graphing, 2D, side imaging, now live scope. I mean, I feel like, what had the biggest effect on you when it released relative to, looking back?
Well, if you're going to go way back, I would say the biggest change in musky fishing was actually when braid first came out. I
Huh.
mean, I don't know if you guys um, ever had to fish muskies with like 30-pound mono or Dacron.
I think
We've heard people
so.
talk about it. Go ahead,
We
Gus.
first, no, I didn't mean to butt in. I'm just saying we for sure started with 30-pound braid. I think was like our first setups max on those
That
round
sounds right.
reels and like 6 foot medium heavies. But I remember a setup that Dad had in the bunkhouse, that ugly stick rod with
Oh
that old
yeah.
old ambassador. That is
Yeah.
Dacron. That
That's a
is Dacron on
Dacron.
that.
I don't
That
even know
was
what it
because
was. I
that is
mean,
not
yeah.
braid. That is literally that's like tip up line. That's like the backing for your fly reel. I mean.
Yeah.
That was definitely we never used it though. It's still the same way it is from back before we even got the cabin up here originally,
So
Yeah,
20 years
well,
ago.
obviously, like the changer there, I'm sure was just the durability of it, not losing fish from
Yeah.
breakoffs. But why? I mean, that's a unique answer. Why do you say that that was such a game changer?
well, take one of your musky rods that you have right now, go put on 30-pound mono, and go cast a mag dog and rip it, and see how far you're actually moving that bait in the water versus 80-pound braid of your choice. I mean,
Not
it
snapping it.
no, I
No.
mean it was such a difference. And there was still a couple times where, especially like late into November, when you would be dealing with frozen temperatures, up until maybe, I don't know. How long have we had trolling now? Has it been 8 years, 9 years?
18 like 18.
I'm just trying to think on like I know like the year it was open again, they want the people won it trolling on the Eagle River chain, I think, in the PMTT. I don't remember what year that was. In the
I
teens?
think 2018, or maybe it 2016. Anyway, whatever. It was 8 or 10 years. Um, I would still sometimes have one or two rods in the boat, and we would bump it up to like 40-pound big game mono because, you've all been there when you're casting and it's cold and you're freezing up reels. Mono still would never freeze up. So if you did have some hardcore casters that wanted to cast a crankbait or something, um, you could get away with it with the mono. But I mean, we had braid obviously back then, but just the switch of, I mean, you have no idea how much that line would stretch in comparison to, braid. I mean, that just seemed like to be, to me, like the biggest game
Hmm.
changer because you had, the ultimate and hook sets. You had so much more feel. You could feel a depth rater, completely vibrating. You had the greatest feel. You felt everything as compared to mono. I mean, you yeah, you owe it to yourself to just cast one or two times and just be like, oh
Yeah.
my God.
Got to be such a delay.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I mean, you'd make, I mean, you
Oh
didn't you
yeah.
didn't know any different back then because you didn't have
Hmm.
any other options. But yeah,
Right.
you'd make a rip and yeah, you might move your rod 5 feet, but your bait moved a foot and a half because the rest of it's stretched.
That's a lot
Yeah.
of
You
work
know?
right there. That is
I
a lot. I got one question for you, Rob, on that braid side of things. So after chatting with throughout the last few years, some people that we've talked to in like the tournament side of things, or a few of them guides too, but with braid and the rods you have now, 9 footers, 10 footers, extra heavies, double extra heavies. I've talked to a lot of people that are like really, really in tune with their baits and how they're working in the water. And they've told me that there's kind of a point, in certain times of year, certain baits that they can be overworked, especially rubber. Like you don't realize how much you're pulling a bulldog when you have a 10 footer and you're giving it one full sweep compared to what you used to, with the 6, a 7, or an 8 footer or what have you. Did you see that as rods were progressing? Did you see that where maybe there were some days you were not getting bites when you kind of used to? Did you back off, like go to a lighter rod setup? Because I know some people that they still use like 9 footers, but they purposely, like in the springtime, a little colder, they know to not pull the bait quite as far because of how far they are bringing it compared to how they used to.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying with that. I mean, I still have, an array of rods from 7/9 up to 10 foot, and kind of like exactly what you just said. I'll springtime, maybe you're a little more subtle approach and not so vigorous or working baits so violently that, I'll use the shorter rods for that. I mean, nothing ever below 7/9, but a lot of 8 or 8/6, something like that. Just so you're not overworking a lure, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
I still prefer, well, we both use St. Croix rods, and I really wanted them to. My favorite like jerkbait rod prior to the ones they have now was that 7'9" lipstick rod that they had in the tournament series, which was a great rod for Suics. But I said, if you could stretch this rod out another 6 inches and make it 8'3", and they started making that 8'3", and man, I just love that rod, all year long for working Suics or bobbies or dive and rise type jerk baits like that.
I
But yeah, no, it is easy to catch yourself making too big of sweeps with a much longer rod when you're just getting into that rhythm and you forget that I mean your rod's like a fulcrum, a lever. I mean, so the further you swing that rod, the more movement you're making, and yeah, it can make a difference for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah, that lipstick rod is great. I got it late last year and I started running that a little bit. I threw a lot of glide baits on it into the fall and it was absolutely money. That's one I'm going to use every year for sure.
Back
Yeah.
at to the same part of my last question with like most, game breaking technology that you'd seen. What about bait wise? Like, was there a certain bait that hit the market when you got it in your hands? It was like this thing is just crushing fish and it stayed on your rod for a long period of time.
Yeah, obviously, like say when Bulldogs first came out, that was really the first big rubber bait that was on the market. But tubes when they first came out, like, I don't, when you talk to people, a lot of people think tubes didn't come out until 6, 7 years ago. But Mark Arena at Red October, he had been making them things back in the 90s. Problem was the harness was garbage, and he could never make a good harness. I mean, I don't know how many times he'd have fish hit that bait, and you could just never hook them up, and trying to, just figure out a better way. What can we do to make this? There weren't the harnesses. I mean, back then they were just like the kind of like just the nose rig. I mean, it was a one treble deal, and you'd sit there and try to bend wire and form something, try to figure out how to add weight to it without making this tube spin in circles or whatever. But all his tubes back then, he basically, because he was small potatoes at the time and hand pouring the stuff, and the rubber was great. Like it always seems like when rubber baits are first made in someone's basement or garage, they're always the best until they get mass produced, which they're still obviously great now. But I've got maybe 3 or 4 of the original body tubes, and they just do a lot different stuff, because they're, the walls of the tube itself were thinner and the tentacles were a lot thinner and more numerous, so it looked a lot better in the water. But once they got the harnesses down, obviously the hooking percentage was way higher, and of course then obviously the popularity got going. But I mean, that was that was a bait that I was catching a lot of fish on, in the late 90s, early 2000s, before they really got popular. Now I don't think you can find a musky angler that don't have a tube and it's in their boat or 15 of them. So,
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, I know. I just stopped by the Red October booth in the Minnesota show on Saturday, and it blows my mind at some of the paint jobs on these customized tubes and everything now. And it's actually interesting to hear you talk about tubes from that long ago, though, because you're right. I mean, I know for us, like tubes were, we when we got into musky fishing, rubber baits were, here's a bulldog, here's a Medusa. Those were kind of the only two we really knew about. And I remember the first time Gus gave me a tube to throw, and I was just like, what is this thing? It's just a ping pong ball down there going all over the place. I had no idea how to work it, and I'm just like, why would a muskie ever eat this thing? But they're super versatile baits, and now, yeah, one of the favorites. And so that was something you were using up in northern Wisconsin back in the day. Did it
oh
feel like
yeah.
no one else was really throwing it up there, or was it pretty?
Yeah, they weren't very popular. I mean, because, I mean, honestly, I mean, if you got 6 bites, you maybe hooked up one fish. I mean, no matter how you played around with it. And it was kind of like a work in progress. And, when it got figured out, then it was great. But I mean, the, we tried everything. I mean, you didn't have I mean, I didn't have the ability to have like a wire form mold where you could dump hot lead and make these harnesses that they have now, or they're just and there really wasn't any big jig heads that were available. I mean, you take it for granted now. I mean, you can find how many different manufacturers make a great big jig head, that
Right.
that work for all these things. But yeah, that was one bait that definitely stood out. And then obviously, like when the double cowgirl came around, I mean, who would have ever thought, obviously fish get conditioned to some baits, but double bladed baits, it's like it's there's just they just muskies just can't leave them alone. I mean, look at how many manufacturers are out there now. I mean, Bruce Shumway's got to be rolling around saying, man, because he's the one that made the first double 10, but that was way ahead of his time, years back, and there wasn't the equipment to throw them. There wasn't low gear ratio reels, or people would look at a bait and be like, what are we gonna do with this thing? I mean, I remember him telling me, he's like, I thought this was going to be a hot bait. He's like, I got 10,000 number 10 blades sitting here and I can't sell any of these damn baits. You know,
Oh man.
Shit.
I bet you if you go back in time and put a patent on it, he'd be happy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he would have been pretty happy. Yeah.
No kidding.
Same with his kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
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 That's yeah. No, that's interesting.
I got I
Do
got
you,
a question for you
yeah.
guys.
Sure.
So, all right, Gus, what's sugs? What's the significance of sugs as far as
Sucks. That is that's my oldest nickname. So
oh,
I
okay.
was born the name August, but everyone called me Gus.
Okay.
And in preschool, I was signing a photo of a flower pot that we made in class, and I spelled it. If you look at it left to right, it was GUS, but just mirror the G, mirror the S. And as I said, I can't screw up the U. I didn't screw that one up at least. So a babysitter saw that painting and called me Sug since I was 3. So
Okay.
that's been a nickname. So I just when I came up with the guide service, I had a couple ideas, but I wanted to leave Muskie out of it in case I was going to guide something else. And I'm just like, I could just do something basic like Eagle River Musky Guide or something like that, but nah, I wanted to make it more personable. So that's where Suggs Fishing came from.
All right.
A hint of dyslexia.
Yeah. That's what he was getting at.
Gus was a little slow. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
always a
yeah, it
special
was
kid.
2 years of preschool, got to be
Yeah,
held
got
back.
held back. Yeah. Yeah.
Summer B-Day problems.
With those tubes, Rob, do you like throwing the shallow, mid, or deep rigs more or less? Which one do you
For
prefer?
the longest time, I like just using the nose rig and, played around with a bunch of different spinner attachments. And when Mark first came up with the harness that he had, where he had, two weights above the, one up in the nose, one on the back hook hanger. So you had space in between, on that wire in between the two weights. And I was taking a rubber core sinker, pulling the rubber part out of it, putting it over that wire, crimping it closed so it could slide back and forth. So every time you jerked it, the weight went forward and it would clunk that weight. And then if you let it pause as it nosedived down, the weight would go, you'd pop it up, it would go back to the other one. That was
Pretty
a
sweet.
great lure for me. And playing around with willow leaf or a French blade or something on the back hook, just to give it some more flash or slow it down on the drops and things like that. But he quit making that type of harness and he went to, because the problem was with that thin wire, when he would pull it out of the mold, that lead would be so hot, sometimes it weakened it, and two or three fish and it would break off at one of those points. So now he's got, that rig that he calls the rig that's the hybrid harness, which is still
Hmm.
a nose rig too, but it's got a lot more weight. It's just a lot stiffer. And I've been throwing a lot more of the jig style, the mid, and or, the heavier deep ones, but just working them a lot fast. It seems like now, if anything, maybe fish have gotten a little conditioned to tubes and having to work them quicker, make them more erratic, and you can get by with the mid or the deeper rig a lot easier that way. Yeah, but I'm finding myself throwing a lot more of those type rigs than the nose rig.
Sure. We struggled with the nose rig right away. I think we had one of those and then a mid depth, and we just always kind of did the mid depth instead. That's what we gravitated towards on using. But he kind of already semi answered a question I was going to have. I was going to ask about bait mods, um, specifically from back in the day, and maybe tubes as well. If there was maybe one that you did for the first time that didn't just catch one fish, it caught 30 fish for you. Like it was a big time mod that you did that maybe it's more prominent now, maybe it's still secret, you don't want to share it, you do. If you got anything, whether it is a tube or not, I'd be curious to hear.
Well, playing around, like I said, with the different blades, it seemed like the best blade that worked for me was a willow leaf on that nose rig tube. Specifically, the willow leaf blade off of a Wendell harasser. Like they cut their own willow leaf blade. If you ever look at their blades, they're not any shape or um, or thickness of anything that you can buy. They stamp their own deal. And there was something about that size of blade on a 10-inch tube that just seemed to make a big difference. It really did. Um, playing around, adding some, like, we all have had suics, unweighted suic that you can just, whether there's maybe a extra knot or two in the wood or something that just makes that bait a little bit more special when you ripping it around in the water and it dances perfectly left to right as you're walking it, but you wish it got a little deeper or something, and instead of using a weighted leader, I'd put it on a drill press and drill it out and add weight specifically here or there to what some part of the body, where you wanted that one. It's like, God, if this nose was a little heavier and I could get it to pop down and come back up a little bit more. But yeah, sometimes you ruined a bait, but adding weight
Trial and
to,
error.
huh?
Trial and error.
Yeah. Um, Other than that, I don't know. I sometimes feel like I can't throw like a smaller mid-sized single-bladed bucktail without adding some type of a twister to it. I don't really like putting them on a treble, just sliding it over the hook, or like the chaos tails that they have are great, that have the little hole in it and go right over the top of right over the shank of the treble. Those killer tails. But what I would do is I would take a number 9 Berkeley crosslock snap and add it to the split ring right above the treble. And then you could just open up that snap and then just slide on a little grub tail and close that snap. And then that wasn't like connected to the hook. So it kind of wavered on its own little deal. I mean, that's nothing, not rocket science or anything, but I thought was just a better way to add a grub tail, and it wasn't hanging off the hook so far, so I mean it was like right even with the treble, so to kind of eliminated any short bites. How sometimes if you got a long trailer, they come up and they nip that, especially at the boat side. If you're figure eighting a fish and they come up and want to just nip at the end, and yeah, the fish thinks it's grabbing the bait, but it's just grabbing a big piece of plastic that doesn't have a hook in it.
I have something really funny to add that I know why it's Max is smiling for a reason. So when I first got into making some bucktails myself and bought all the components and everything to make, I was just goofing around and maybe like, oh, I could maybe sell some of these, thinking stupid. But I bought a bunch of the really big Magambo grubs. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to be different. I'm gonna throw these giant grubs on there. I threw a big grub on the back. Like I would feed it down the hook so it ran flush like the killer
Yeah.
tails from Chaos, and I'd get that on there nice. I'd shrink tube it. I'd get that on there. I built a whole bunch that winter, didn't get some bites, didn't get bites, used them. And then Max was out fishing with just our dad, and he said he had a fish so hot and came in and just annihilated it, but only ate the tail, bit the tail off, and then it went away. And I've never made one since.
I was so pissed because I'm like, without that stupid grub on the back of this bait, I would have caught
Would've-
that fish because it just
Sure,
would have ate the bait. And
because it
that
was
fish,
following the blades and the
I
profile.
mean,
Like it didn't care.
yeah, that
Maybe
thing
it
would have
did.
eaten a freaking, rubber band and a ball out there. I mean, it was so hot, like it didn't matter. So then forever since then, I've kind of swore off trailer grubs because I don't
Well,
know.
you either like them or you hate them. I mean, it's really, I mean, I hear you there. I mean, God rest his soul, the big Swede. I mean, he over in Minnesota and Leech, man. If you put a twister on the back of one of his lily tails out there, I mean, he'd get just pissed. He's like, all you're asking for is a short bite. He's like, get that off of there.
Respect. Respect.
Uh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you brought up going over to Minnesota. You've obviously been really faithful to the North Woods and got some pretty significant roots there, obviously, as we've talked about. But where do you like to fish elsewhere? I mean, have you been to Minnesota a good bit, Canada, I would assume a decent bit?
Well, I, my travels around the area have been greatly reduced, since we've, with the resort and the restaurant and everything, especially in the summer months, because that's obviously the height of the Northwoods tourist time. Um, so pretty much for the last 10 years, it's been maybe a week here, there, one week of summer going up to Eagle Lake. I've fished Eagle since 1986. And
Wow.
if I have a choice in Canada, that's where I'm going to go because I know that the best. Yeah, I've fished Vermilion, I've fished Leech, um, fished all around, other smaller lakes in the northern part of Minnesota there, but time's limited, so it's Eagle Lake or bust for me. Get down to Green Bay a couple days in the summer, but that's really about it.
Have you fished many of the other Canadian waters up around Eagle, or have you just kind of stuck
Oh
and
yeah,
stayed?
no, I fished, Lake of the Woods, fished on Cedar, Indian Chain, um, some of the other smaller remote lakes to drive to, like Ord, Moose, uh, all those little lakes around there. I was talking to Gus this weekend. I mean, we fished on, I've only time I've ever been on Wabigoon or Denoriwick has been in the winter. Never threw a cast out there. Um, been over to Nipissing and French River and stuff that way. Haven't been to the St. Lawrence or
Jeez.
anything that way yet, but most of that was all done prior to 2006,
So what is it about Eagle that makes you keep coming back? Is it the style of fishing, biggest fish?
Well, I have definitely seen some true giant fish there. Hooked one year that was 56, 57-inch type fish. Fought it to the boat, it was never hooked. It inhaled one of Lee Towson's topwater baits. I was more worried about it biting the fluorocarbon leader because you could not see the lure in its mouth. Got it to the boat. My buddy was right there with the net. Fish opened up its mouth and the bait flew out. It was never hooked, just holding on to a chunk of wood.
Oh,
Um,
Good
but
Lord.
but I mean, ultimately, it comes down to it. You're on a lake for a week, and it's like fishing up here. You know the lake and you know where to go, and you're not experimenting. Um, it can be a very tough lake. I mean, it can kick your butt, but it can be very rewarding too.
Right.
when's the last time you fished a new body of water in Vilas County?
A new body of water,
Yeah.
last year actually.
No shit.
Really? You
Yeah, I
found
fished,
one.
huh?
You found one.
Well, obviously, as you know, it would be pretty tough to fish every lake that we have muskies in. I
Yeah.
mean, in a given time with the full guide calendar and so on. But I have two customers that specifically every year they come up, and when they come up for 3 days, one of those days we have to go to a lake that I've never been to or they've never been to,
Oh, that's
and
kind of
That's
cool.
fun. Yeah.
That's cool.
so, it's kind of like, well, this is what we're going to do to learn. This is what we're going to break it down type of thing, and that's part of what they want to see. Like, what would you do? How would you go about this lake if you didn't know anything else about it? And we've done that for the last 3 years. So,
Honestly, if I was a guy that was just getting into musky fishing and hired a guide, it's kind of a genius thing to do
Yeah.
because when you're a weekend warrior, somebody, like Brian and I or whatever, like if we didn't have Gus and say Brian and I just wanted to go fish Hayward or whatever, I mean, how valuable would that be? Say, oh, we went out with a trip with Rob and here was the first three things he looked for, where's bait, where's this, where's that, or where, just whatever your eyes, led you to, like, main point, whatever it was. I mean, that would be, I feel like, really valuable information to have, especially when you go out and fish on your own after, you take them on that trip.
yeah, I mean, it does kind of, you know, when you've been doing some of these lakes for as long as I have, you just kind of get caught in a repetitive rut sometimes, and you got to have those days where it's like, okay, there's no pressure because we don't know anything about this lake. I don't know anything about this lake. I know there's muskies in it. I know there's weeds. I know there's some rocks. Let's go out and see what we can find, and a lot of times like that, it ends up being a good day because you stumble into something that it's like, wow, okay, and maybe this will work, maybe it won't. A couple times we've tried new lakes that I knew people that fished them. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a good lake. Well, don't tell me nothing about it. Don't. I just want to go see. And you've gone there and you got your butt kicked, and then you find out that okay, I mean, I didn't know this lake was a specific perch pattern lake or something stupid like that's just off the top of my head. But you know how it can be. You could be throwing the exact wrong baits, even though you think it's right, or it was the day. Sometimes these experimental days are bluebird dead calm days, which would be even tough on some of your favorite go-to water, especially when you're, at a 7 to 4 o'clock schedule or something like that, where you're not able to go back out, in the evening or something like that. But, I've gone back to them and, figured some things out. But yeah, I mean, definitely have fished some new water the last couple of years for sure.
That's good. That's good to keep it fresh. I was just surprised that maybe there's a few that you haven't hit over, the course of 30, 40 years up here. Of course, there's some that, you can't put your big boat in. We have tons of pothole lakes up here, that have muskies, or maybe they don't say they have muskies or this and that, you know, that I might never ever get to, if there's, guiding to be had. Um, but that's definitely, it's got to be exciting going to new stuff. Did you throughout the years, did you ever partake in any tournaments? Did you travel for any tournaments at all, or did you pretty much just plant yourself here?
Yeah, I mean, I used to fish the walleye trail. Obviously that was a lot of traveling, but musky wise, the only tournaments I ever fished were local ones, PMTT, back when Raleigh and Helens had their tournaments, the um,
The WMT is it at all when they were
no,
around?
never fished any of the WMTs. No, no, just the and partially because, back when that started, I mean, that was a two fish transport tournament, so, you caught two fish, you had to bring them in, and that was
That's the
it.
limit.
So if you, was it a gamble? You caught two 34 inchers, you bring them in, or, you play the odds, um, and I just never agreed with transport type tournaments anyways. But no, my brother-in-law and I, Andy, we won the PMTT one year on Eagle River. Won a Raleigh and Helens one back in the late 90s. Um, Fished Paul's Pro-Am, Spring Classic, all the local stuff.
You remember the PMTT that you won in Eagle River? Kind of like what you guys were doing and maybe why you won that one?
Yeah, we didn't pre-fish. That's why we won.
It's the best pre-fish.
No, honestly, so what happened on that tournament?
That's funny.
That was '08. Um, and it was Tuesday before the tournament. Um, there was these three brothers I always fished with. And well, they didn't show up at the resort. They didn't show up to check in. Like, okay, waiting here for them. What's going on? Well, we get a call. One brother got in a car accident and got killed. So they're like, we're not coming up north. Understandably why, very sorry to, tell you last minute. It's like, you don't have to explain nothing. So it's Wednesday, and I was talking to my brother-in-law, Andy, and he's like, well, let's see if we can still get in, called Woodlackey. And he's like, back then that tournament wasn't filling like it is now. And he's like, well, yeah, we can. He goes, I can add you in, but you're obviously going to be at the end of the stack going out. Like, well, whatever. We just want to, get into this thing, whatever. So he clarified it and everything with that. Well, now it's Thursday, and um, I was out there Monday of that week for league, and so that was the only time I'd been on the water up until the tournament. Well, then of course Friday it's rule meeting day, so we're sitting there watching every boat go out, and well, where do you want to start? Like, well, wherever there isn't a boat, it's like, you take off from Eagle Lake, and it's like, oh, there is nobody over there on any of those little rock bars on the south shore. Let's go over there and fish. Go over there. Andy catches a 41 incher. All right, great. Like everybody else is fishing weeds, and it's like let's just go. We just sat and concentrated on gravel and rock. I mean, for whatever reason, it was like that's we caught a fish doing that. There was, long story short, first day of the PMTT, there was 7 fish caught, or seven boats caught fish. That was it. One boat had 3, and then the other 6 had 1. So we were sitting in like the top 5 with 141 incher, which, let's face it, the way it's been out there lately, you'd be not even on the board, you'd just be hoping to have a good second day. But we had caught, that was 34 inches back then, and we had caught 3 other fish that were like 32, 33, and 33 and 3/4, which would have all counted nowadays, but this was all rock gravel stuff and everybody else was fishing weeds. So the next day, because there was, other than like the team boats, the other half of the field reversed, so we got to go out before that next flight, and then we ran we ran right to eagle, or to catfish, and we started fishing, any hump out there that was just bald of nothing. And I catch I think it was 35 and a half or 35 and 3/4. Well, then next thing we know, we got Keys following us along with the camera. And I'm like, why are you, following us? And he's like, well, you guys caught a fish right away this morning. It's like, okay, like, so how's everybody else doing? Oh, we can't say. Like, well, we're moving. So then they followed us we went and hopped on one of them bars out there, like out just between the Narrows and Deer Point there, and catch another fish. And so they're filming that, and Mike's like, well, we're sticking with you the rest of the day. And I said to Andy, I'm like, how big was that triple that team had last year? And he's like, I think we're ahead of them. I'm like, I wonder if they zeroed, because obviously you'd think a team that caught 3 the day before probably would have caught another fish. Well, they had the first place, jinx. They caught 3 fish the first day and didn't catch any the second day, and our 3 fish were bigger. So we kind of had a feeling, that we were in the lead, and yeah, obviously we were. And no, it was we ended up catching 7 fish that were over 30 inches, but at that time, they had to be over 34. So we actually would have had a pretty good score in this day and age. But
Yeah, no doubt.
that was, it was like, I remember when we had just like, so did you guys find these fish pre-fishing? Like, no, we didn't even, our pre-fishing was Monday night league, when, I expected that I was going to be guiding Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So there wasn't even any thought of fishing this tournament. So like, best tournament technique, just go out and show up on Saturday. Matter
I
of
hear that a
fact,
lot. Just go fishing.
when we won Raleigh and Helens, I was up on Eagle Lake prior to that, and the fishing was so good, we didn't want to come home. And me and my partner at the time, we fished Eagle on Friday until like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. Then we packed up and we drove back home. We got home at like 2:30 in the morning, and then showed up to fish the tournament at 5. And we had and that was on the Minocqua chain, and we had no pre-fishing out there, other than that that was when I lived in Minocqua, and I fished tomahawk in Minocqua, 5 days out of 7 back then. So it was just go out and fish. And I think sometimes, I don't know, I don't know. I mean, 2 tournaments that I've won musky fishing had involved no pre-fishing, so either it was just dumb luck or something, I don't know. But it worked.
It's worked. I hear that a lot about, yeah, just go out and go fishing. Just go to your best spots and have fun, and but most importantly, fish hard, That's time management's a huge thing in there, whether to jump a spot or not, or
Oh
stick and
yeah.
stay, make them pay. That's, it's really just a big mental battle. I mean, in a sense, for us guiding out there, they're like mini tournaments per day. Sometimes, if you're presented with tough conditions in a half day to get people out. I know when we talked this weekend, you prefer to book people for full days musky fishing, which I do as well. Because it's tough to make it happen in 4 hours, 5 hours.
Well, the problem is with that, and it's not from a standpoint of you or me or anybody else, trying to be greedy. I mean, how many times are you out there for a half a day and that last 45 minutes the shit starts happening? And it's like,
Yeah.
you know, you guys, this is why, we should have done a full day, and it's like I, if hey, I can stay out here a little bit longer if you guys want to, or we can continue it on. And well, we got to go meet our brother at 1 o'clock for a tea time or something. I mean, it is, you can almost set your watch to it that it's going to happen that way. So at least if you're out there for a full day, you should hopefully hit some type of a window or maybe two.
Hmm.
Right
And
on.
really, I mean, when you do run a half a day, I mean, by the time you get done and go put your boat away, if you don't have a trip right after it, I mean, you usually end up having 6 hours invested. So, the time to put everything away is the same, whether it's a 4 hour trip. Or an 8 hour trip. So I just, I just think it's just, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the fish just to put in as much time as you can while you're out there.
Right.
Hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm curious if we were to pull up to Fibbers and you were to have a drink on the menu with your name next to it, what would that drink be?
With my name next to it or just a
Yeah,
name?
like Rob's drink at Fibbers, specialty drink. What is it?
Any top shelf tequila.
Oh.
Oh, tequila man.
Yeah.
That's kind of a
Hmm.
surprise.
On a rock?
Oh, yeah. No, we got some stuff that's really would just be fine with one big giant ice cube.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Might have to poke our heads in there during opener, Brian.
I don't know if I've ever had tequila up in Eagle River or Minocqua, but maybe.
I think no better time to start, I think.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I know we're kind of running on some time. We don't want to keep you forever. And I did want to get to this question,
Yeah.
and it's kind of out of the blue. So, I've enjoyed, I would say, I don't know if you would agree with this classification, but maybe some of your snarkiness online is quite funny. And I've always wanted to ask you, if you had a magic wand or a genie came down and said, I can grant you one wish in musky fishing, what's like one thing you'd want to just blanket change, correct, if you just had one swing of the pen?
Well,
You don't have to limit it to one.
if if everybody's got some little quirks that kind of, I don't know. I hate the word epic. Everything is epic. know, just it was an awesome day. Just let it go with that. I had some guys in my boat one year going way back, and that was just their word every 5 minutes, and it was it just wore on me. And I obviously, if you're referring to some of the starkiness, it's always just a word that just is like the the word that pushes your buttons. I mean, I don't ever read anything into it, but it's just like, oh, that was an epic strike. It's like, yeah, it was awesome. It's just, that's all.
Right.
That's, you're laughing. I mean, yeah, there's some people I poke fun at, but they're always just opening themselves as a punching bag. So I mean, there's never really any harm, no foul to it. It's just more of a personal inside joke than anything. So
Oh, it's funny.
Right.
I thought you were gonna say, it'd be like you only can take the fish out of the water for 30 seconds or this or that, and I was not expecting it to be,
A
don't use
word.
the word epic.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there is a lot. I mean, there's there's a lot of things that you see. I mean, the problem is with, with social media, and so on. Obviously, a lot of people know exactly what they're doing, but there's the times where, maybe some things are a little too much, and especially some of the new people getting into the sport, and they're like, well, look at this guy's doing this. Well, we can do it that way. But, if you're not, there's a lot of experience involved, that you gain over the years. And, ultimately, all of us just have to be stewards of the industry, and just, promote the safest handling and everything you can possibly do to, maintain our fishery. I mean, obviously, our backs against the wall with everything that's going on. With the DNR, and everybody wants to stock more fish, and we can't get the funding, or we can't raise the right fish, and we have more and more people fishing muskies all the time. And obviously, the more and more people that catch them, there's going to be more delayed mortality, this, that, or whatever. So, if everybody just cared about it and thought about tomorrow a little better, I think we'd all be better off, as a whole. Um, and that's really the truth when it comes to it. I mean, we all want to catch more fish, and we want more fish in the lakes. And if everybody just did their part a little bit more, I would think it would make a big difference.
Yeah.
I think it's a
Yeah.
really good take because it's, the one thing as anglers we can actually truly control. We can't stock fish, we can't decide regulate. I mean, to a certain extent, obviously we can vote on these things or try to help fund them and whatever, we can do our part, but like the most direct control you have over taking care of the fishery, I would say would be, fish handling because it's, you know, I guess it's like you said, all the little things they add up, and
I mean, we all
I
see it. We see it
yeah.
every year. I mean, you see people that aren't musky anglers. They catch a fish, maybe they're bass fishing or walleye fishing, and they scoop it up and they bring it in the boat, and you hear it thumping around. Um, you know, I'll tell my customers, hey, let's go over and help these guys. Or, obviously they don't have the proper tools. Maybe give them a little education, whatever. I mean, if you helped them teach them something. I mean, I do a little bit about that in every seminar. And this past weekend, you know, it was, there was a lot of people that, when you asked them, what's their, my most important tool that I have handy immediately is not a jaw spreaders or big long nose pliers. It's my cutters. I mean, you net that fish, if they roll up in the net, and they're hanging themselves with their head out of the water, I don't worry about trying to rip that hook out. I mean, I just cut it free from the net right away. Drop that fit, cut the hooks first, then go worry about pulling pieces out where, you know, I mean, hooks are the cheapest part of your bait, just get that fish back in the water, and, let them start breathing what makes them live. They don't breathe air like us, and, I mean, I don't think there's enough education that can be done with releasing and handling fish. I mean, we all see bad releases. We've all had some bad releases. I mean, there's times fish eat baits that you can't control what they do, and they, there's hook mortality that happens, especially with rubber baits. They think it's a real fish. They inhale the hell out of them, and they can deeply hook themselves. It wasn't you or me or Gus's fault. I mean, it's just what the fish did. But, try to do whatever you can do to, to make them live.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Big
no,
time
no
there.
doubt. Yeah, I think sometimes we you spend a lot of time with other guys that are diehard musky anglers, and it feels like everyone in your bubble is really good about it, or puts an emphasis on it. But then you go out on a random weekend day, and you just realize that yeah, it's not something that not everyone knows what's going on. I mean, I've had times on Minnetonka where people will be walleye or bass fishing, and then they pull out the musky equipment, and then you look in their boat and like there's no musky net in there.
Right,
So,
right.
you know, where do you think that fish is
Yeah.
going if it gets hooked? It's
Yeah.
going right to the bottom of the boat. Um, and yeah, it's just it is what it is. So yeah, it's good to have, you know, someone like yourself kind of talk about those things and keep talking about them. We probably, you know, probably need to talk about it more on this podcast too. You know, probably don't hit on it enough. So um well, that's good. All right, so genie, magic wand, don't use the word epic, and take care of the fish when they're out of the water.
Hook
What do
cutters.
you
Yeah.
what do
Cutters.
you, Rob? We've had a discussion on this word on the podcast here before. What do you think of the word grind? Like today was a grind. It's been an absolute grind out here. We've debated on this before, but what do you think of that word?
That's right behind Epic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we
Overused.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, just completely overused. Just like, is it a grind? Like we're choosing to be out here and work our asses off to fish 12 hours. We chose to sit out here
Right.
in the beating sun to grind after these muskies when it is, you know, overtly difficult conditions. But yeah, I think that might be right there with Epic. Epic's a new one.
Yeah.
That's a new
Now I'll
one
notice
for
it.
the arsenal. Now I know
So
what
the
now I
title,
have some ammo for Facebook for you, Rob.
Perfect.
yeah, I can't wait to release this podcast. Rob Manthei's epic interview with Muskies on
Yeah, I
Tap.
see it coming already. Yeah.
I can see it coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
might have to happen. Getting creative
Yeah.
on Wednesday night.
Good stuff. You guys got any last questions for Rob? Rob, you got any last questions for us? This has been a lot of fun. Appreciate your time.
I don't think so. I don't know the in
Now the kids are cuddling.
yeah, they
Okay,
were enjoying it.
nice.
Love it. Love it.
No, that's
Cool.
good. We really do appreciate your time, Rob. We'll have to get you back on here to chop up more uh guiding stories and you know lures this and that. I think we covered quite a bit here tonight, a good amount of time. So we do appreciate your time hopping on.
Yeah, no, anytime, guys.
Thank you
Cool.
very much.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Just had a great interview there with Rob Manthei out of St. Germain, Wisconsin at Fibbers and St. Germain Lodge. Um, Great time. We talked about a whole lot of stuff. You know, I like the tube talk as always. We've had a couple of those talks already this year. You know, we love our Red Octobers. You know, we love our mods. Talked about what to throw on the back of them and, you know, what they were like at the beginning. So that was kind of cool to hear about that and some of the stories that Rob had to share. We'll definitely get him on again. He is a wealth of knowledge up here in the Northwoods. Been fishing here forever and putting a lot of muskies in the boat. So um, I think some of the big things we want to chat about here on the outro, Max, Minnesota Muskie Expo. You had a first true bait haul of the year. Let's talk about
Yeah.
that. I mean, or just on Friday, what were the vibes there? It was a new venue. Are they going back to that one again? Did they start promoting the next year, or what was that like there?
You know, it was interesting. Obviously that area is really nice. Canterbury, that whole like new complex, they're developing a lot of new stuff down there. So the actual area is great. I think for the expo, you know, the one interesting caveat to the the I guess the show this year was it was a two-room show. So when you walked into the front entrance, you know, you'd go to your left, there's a giant you know, room that was housing a bunch of vendors, and then you'd actually have to walk down a fairly long hallway to get into the second room where we were at with the Huntsy Tales booth, and it was fairly far away. Like to go from one side of the expo to the other was actually a pretty long walk. So you'd kind of notice it would come in waves where you felt like a lot of the people are over in one room, and then they'd come back to the other side. So I think there was a little bit of people feeling like that was maybe not the best layout, but you know, it was fine. And, you know, I think the traffic was really good. So overall, I would say it was probably a pretty solid show.
That layout's like the same as the Wisco Expo, though, right? You walk in,
No,
left side
no.
is.
No, the Wisco Expo's got like the hallway outside because they just have
Oh,
so
there
many
was vendors
vendors.
in the
But
other room at the Minnesota one. I was thinking of where they do the speeches and stuff is separate from.
yeah, no, this was like two totally different rooms for vendors. So it
Yeah,
was,
I remember
split down
Doug's
the
video.
middle.
Yeah.
Yep. And like TRO and Thorn Brothers was in the one room, so that kind of helped, bring people there. But obviously their booths are so big. When he went to the other room that TRO and Thorn weren't at, it was a lot more like individual smaller booths.
Gotcha.
Um, so yeah, it was an interesting layout, but I would say the show was good and there was a lot of people there and weather was solid, so that all helped out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. I heard you guys dodged the snow slightly where we got hit with the snow. Madison, the expo was going strong on Saturday, and then all of a sudden you pair it was an away game, but you pair a Badgers basketball game with like 2 inches of fresh snow, and it just went bzz, dead, like 2.5 hours before the show even got done on Saturday. But it is what it is, and you just, walk around and chat with people and see some people. So that was good there. But Max, what was your you said you got a Friday bait haul and then you were able to get some Saturday and swap meet stuff. So what is it? What did you get?
All right, I'll do my best
What's
to
the
remember
goods?
here. It was yeah, it was good. So I didn't get
I'll
off
pull up
work
the picture too.
till late. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. I didn't get off work till fairly late on Friday. By the time I made it over, I know you and Brian sent me a nice little wish list for the Kramer booth. Unfortunately, everything that you guys were really wishing for was all gone by the time I got there.
Lovely.
So it's good to see Mike was crushing it. Those deer hair wood ticks apparently went like in the first 20 to 30 minutes.
Do people know something, or are they just curious about a new bait like me?
Probably just a little curious. Um, but yeah, no, got to like honestly, it was just a blast. I walked around on Friday with buddy Ryan Becker and Zach, and we had a good time and got to just chop it up, and it's just like really refreshing. First, just kind of like the first time seeing everybody again
Yeah.
since like the tournaments and stuff, and yeah. So let's just run through it. I mean, I did pick up one wood tick, so that was great. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
then I
Appreciate
did.
that.
I did grab, I'd be curious to get your guys' thoughts on this. I did grab a heli dog, a heli dog, mag size, Brian. I don't know if you're paying
Yeah,
attention right now.
Brian, I think
yeah.
he's listening.
I
Looks like
don't.
I
I've
dig
never
it.
liked the blade bulldogs, but
You ever used one?
yeah, you guys used to have an old one.
That's
Is that
like
true?
ancient one. Yeah, that
Yeah,
reg one.
yeah.
Remember back in the day that moved a big one off a
Walleye one.
broken down boathouse?
Oh,
Yeah, maybe it'll work. Um, on,
you just got beef with innovations.
onward.
You
Ever
got a
since they
lot of
made the
fish on them
quad
baits.
dog, ever since they made the quad dog, you thought of them differently.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I did score a nice little cussy painted Red October tube 10-inch. Brian, I feel like you'd like that color, a little gold orange. Or is that too
Yeah.
basic for you?
I mean, like I said, I'm not a huge tube guy, but I think I still just have to break the seal a little bit more with it. I do like the color though.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hmm.
Did go visit old Jordan Stokes and Schulte at the Bomb Squad Baits booth.
Mm,
Picked up a 10-inch Phantom, which was
mm.
a nice little addition on our Vermilion trip, and I'm really excited to use that bait a lot more
Do you
this year.
do you not have that exact same bait already?
I do not have that exact same bait. No.
Gus? Am I thinking of someone else's boat?
I own two of them.
The exact same one though?
That color? No, I have that orange belly with the blue back and the silver side.
Hmm.
Max got like the pickleback in there.
Hmm.
I remember looking at it the first time he sent the pic. I'm like, all right, duplicate bait. Cool, cool.
That's
Oh, no,
crazy.
no, no. That is
Maybe
wild,
maybe
dog.
like Clayton or Becker, like somebody's boat that I was looking in had that.
And
Good
then
color though.
Probably.
Did get an exorcist as well, which was not a bait I was familiar with. And
That
it's
that
like a
orange thing?
nope, it's the white and blue and gold one. That's like a
Bottom
diving
right.
rise jerk bait. And
Oh,
it's got some nice rear end rattles in it. I'm actually very excited to use that.
Sick.
Nice little search bait. Then did grab a couple flamethrowers from the Musky Addicts booth. That was a bait I grabbed last year. And I think the first time using it, I caught a fish on it, and the fish just mangled it. And that bait, for me last year, never really ran. It was just kind of one of those freak things where I think I cut a bunch of hooks, and the bait just kind of got shredded. And so I was really excited to pick up more. I loved the way it ran. I loved, prior to it being shredded, obviously. And he made like a pro version of it this year that apparently grinds even more. It sounds like it's
Sick.
a little bit harder to get going, so he was kind of hesitant to sell them, but he's like people that know how to fish blades and like fishing blades, once you get the hang of it, it's like a great bucktail that makes a bunch of noise. So, um, obviously, had to pick up a few 810 Huntsy tails, staring at those all weekend. Got some colors I'm pretty stoked about. I got that white gold Cleopatra color,
Sure.
show
Oh yeah.
color. And then
Hmm.
I actually forgot the name of this one, but it's kind of the brown
Is it the
copper gold.
Oh
I don't know if I
shit.
don't think it's the
It's
Three Wise Men, but it might
no,
be.
that
is our
one's got
bucktail there?
nickel, copper, and gold. It
Yeah.
was there. Max just didn't cop.
Did it sell?
What's that?
Our
I think
bucktail?
I
I
think
think we
Mop
sold one.
Moon I think Mop Moon Man was tough.
Dog.
So I did want to say this. So like um Brian's put his hands up. So it was really interesting being at the Minnesota show and seeing what color bucktails people bought, and it was so funny to hear like black obviously was the anything like black bodied was the biggest seller. Um,
Hmm.
and like people were just like, I only throw black bucktails. Like black, if I'm not throwing a black bucktail, if I take that off, I'll put on another black bucktail, and then if that one's not working, I'll put on another black bucktail. And then you had a couple people be like, I live and die by white bucktails, and so they got some of that. That you obviously had your purple golds do pretty good. There's like a midnight moon color that he sells that's like black, purple, and silver that did really well. And then the
It was Jungle
oh
Juice and then Lake of the Woods Gold.
yep, Lake of the Woods Gold did good, which is like a black, gold, and green. And then there was a black, red, and silver one that Kyle Friedges uses in his Beyond the Eight videos that sold really well for people going to Canada, it seemed like. I was definitely steering people to the black green selection when they were asking my opinion. But yeah, it was like not a lot of perch based baits sold.
Again, it's like Chicago. Everybody was going for white. Like nobody, they're like perch don't exist on these lakes, so nobody bought perch things. And
That
I
was
think it'll
weird.
completely ch switch around on Wisconsin or at Wausau. But no, Max, we chatted with Jamie and Kyle on their car ride back, and they said they were extremely appreciative to have you in the booth because there's a lot of people asking about Metro Waters, and they would have had no idea or any recommendation. They would have been just totally BSing on
Fired
any
from the
colors.
hip.
But you were there, and yeah,
I
you
don't know
delivered.
how much better I was doing, but it was really fun, and honestly, it was so super cool to have a bunch of people coming up, and guys and gals that listen to the podcast, and a lot of them had funny, like telling me about funny things that happened during the podcast that honestly I had forgotten about. And it just cracked me up,
Yeah.
just like little random shit that Brian said or you've said, Gus, that's made people laugh. People are a big fan of the intros. They're
Ah,
hoping we
that's
don't get sued,
good.
so we can keep those going.
Hoping we
Um,
don't get sued.
yeah, and then I did
Yeah,
go
that
to
makes sense.
the bait swap, which was a lot of fun, and I ended up finding a freaking awesome China double dog.
Yeah, that thing is my favorite bait of your haul.
Yeah, gold,
That's my
black, and
favorite.
white. And
Yeah.
then I got a little walk the dog rattle bait. Shout out Keegan McIntosh for that one.
That
So
orange and black.
yep,
Oh,
yep. It's got some
Brian's stealing
big
that.
rattles in it, and Yeah, so overall, I think I exercised some pretty good self-control for the most part.
What was your yellow marabou perch bucktail?
That was a nice little special gift from Kyle and Matt Vavrock. Matt Vavrock painted those blades
Oh, that's
custom
sweet.
for Canada. I think he's got a couple of them dished out with some people's names on them. So,
That's
um,
pretty sweet. What are those blades on there?
It says
this
seven
is
eight.
Oh,
this is good podcasting here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll release maybe some of the pictures of some baits of the week coming up as we get closer to the season. Get back on that train. We can.
Yeah.
Ooh, get back on the bait of the week train. I think I'm ready. I mean,
It's
it's
gonna be
it's
just
hard to do
haul
it. It's
Just
hard to do
haul,
it when
haul
we
of the week.
it's basically
haul the
hauls
week.
because
Yeah.
yeah, I think haul of the week might be better because if I
Especially when we
started it
each have
before,
a haul.
I had nothing really new. I mean, there's a couple things that have come in from I don't know, getting it here and there, but it's about ready to toss them up and throw
Yeah,
something on the back.
but it was just awesome seeing everybody. Those shows are so fun, and it was a blast. So I had a really good time. It was really interesting being behind the booth for a full day and watching what people bought and like how people thought about their buying process. Like, hey, I'm only gonna buy one bucktail. Like, and then just them staring at the wall, like, what color should I get? What color should I get? And then you see guys would come in and just buy like nine, and they're just like, I like this, I like this, I like this. And
Yeah.
then,
Yeah.
um, and then like you'd have two guys come in and one of the guy would pick one up and, oh, that's not going to catch, that color isn't going to catch. And it's like, it's
Hmm.
funny to see how different people think about colors and whatever. It's just, it's kind of
I
hilarious.
had that watching you at the Wisconsin Expo last year. You'd grab a bait and you'd start swimming it through midair just to kind of envision what it would do, envision the action.
I think
Exactly.
that
You
would help.
gotta you gotta really
You
visualize
gotta
it.
be the bait.
Catching the
Um,
muskies or catching us
We're
or
what,
both.
three weeks out?
Pretty much, yeah, yeah. The Wisconsin Muskie Expo's on the March 20th to the 22nd. That's coming up real quick. Getting pumped for that. Actually, just today went with Hammer Customs himself, Nick Amros, and of course Clayton. We went to go film some Hammer Customs promo stuff. We got in pool action of all of his baits that he's bringing to the
nice.
expo. So we got his infamous hammer jerk, of course, his dive and rise bait that's, right around 7.5 to 8 inches long or so. He's got his brand new, not necessarily brand new. It's called the sledgehammer. It's basically like a Jake Grandma style twitch bait. Um, it's about 8.5 to 9. I think it's like 8.5 inches or so. With the screw and insert weight, adjustable weight for it. The cool part about that is that he now makes it with the metal lip. So it's indestructible, and he's got the sick little hammer symbol on the front that he's got etched in there to kind of make his baits super unique. And of course, his freaking paint jobs are absolutely nuts. I don't want to drop one here in the pod because I know he's gonna be
Spoil
dropping them like
it.
every day. No, no, he's got some new ones that are extremely popular patterns that he absolutely dialed this year. Um, I think everybody should check out. He's got a Facebook page, of course. Hammer Customs. His Phil glide bait looks money. He's tweaked that a little bit, and then I think those are the main three we did in the pool. We did not do his chain or jackhammer. Mainly trolling style base, kind of hard to do that in there. But dude, that it felt weird tossing around a bait with a rod and not actually like chasing after fish. It was weird.
I
Like
bet.
we're joking with the guy at the hotel, like, hey, you should stock some trout in here or something, or like, yeah, we need to feel something. I don't know. Um, but it was good. If Clayton had his cover or whatever for the GoPro to make it waterproof, I was probably gonna hop in there with him. I did not get in the water.
Same.
That production would be a pretty funny video. Just a camera on the wall in the corner,
It it it
chasing
it
around
could
baits in the pool.
could still be in the works if you get me enough beers deep at Wausau. Might find me in the
Oh
Holiday Inn
God,
pool swimming around, chasing Hammer Customs.
trying them out.
Yeah, no. Don't take that out of context.
Yeesh.
Chasing hammers.
No, I think that brings us up to speed on the our front in the Muskies. Nothing really else exciting happening
No,
other than
muskies
it's
are
getting a
still
little bit
sleeping.
it's getting a little warmer and that's about it. So,
Yeah,
um
they're still shallow.
of course if y'all are looking to hop around in the Eagle River area, I still got a good amount of openings for the time being. Those won't stay open long, especially the peak weeks of Father's Day weekend to Labor Day, which would be considered like the peak of peak season up here in the Northwoods for travel, tourism, staying up here, this and that. Really good muskie fishing. So hop on the books if you want to get in on that action. But if you guys got nothing else to add here, Brian, do you want to take us away on this lovely 1st of March pod?
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode, and shout out to Rob Manthei for coming on tonight, being very generous with his time. Just a rundown on everything in his guiding business, restaurant business, resort business. We're gonna have to go back to Fibbers at some point, probably around opener, the new opener, early May this time. After landing a pre-spawn giant, a prehistoric looking fish, we'll go into Fibbers, get absolutely slammed on tequila on the rocks. March Madness is still coming up. I think we said that last pod. Getting into some mid-level conference championships this weekend. Keep an eye out for Miami of Ohio. They're extremely fraudulent. I do not expect them to win their tournament. Stay tuned on that. PJ Tour is heading to Bay Hill, I believe, this weekend.
Correct.
Uh,
Arnie Palmer.
Arnie Palmer, the Arnie Palmer Invitational. Should be some good golf action for you guys there. Nico Echeverria back to back? Question mark. All right, peace.